the other reps to come back up. What constitutes financially the provisional and full memberships?
Yep, so provisional members pay a $25 joining fee one time, and they actually get a book that's worth about $25. And then full members, they pay a $100 joining fee and then $20 monthly dues. And those dues are applied toward a $5,000 preliminary payment that goes towards the down payment on the home. Yeah.
So my question is about that stage where you said it's most difficult. Individuals, so you need to have equity to build the community, but we need a place to live until the community is ready. So I don't have any equity to promote, to build my unit without selling my unit, so then where do I live? You know, without selling my home.
Right. So that ends up being kind of a decision dance as you move to completion. And some of it depends on the strategy that a specific group follows. Like what we're hoping to do with Richmond Cohousing is to do a joint venture partnership with a developer so that the group will bring equity to the table and the partner will help secure equity for the project. And so people will not need to bring the entire amount of money for their home before it's built. Basically, they'll get they may purchase the home once the houses are complete if they don't want to have a mortgage or they have enough money to purchase the home, or they may get a conventional mortgage at the end of the project. So you would sell your home just like you would in any other housing situation. You would sell your home and then use that towards down payment on another home, or it would be basically conventional mortgage, and it might be condo.
Can I add on, because this is a common question, where am I going to live? And I will just share with my own community in Durham co-housing, we got real creative. I sold my house 2 years before because I was afraid I couldn't sell it and I needed the money. And we rented an apartment that was very cheap, that was near other people that were renting apartments, and we had a great time. Other people did house sitting, other people shared a home together. The point I want to make is that you're a community, so you all have other people, other resources. It's not just you, like where am I going to live? Where are we all going to live? So I want to emphasize the community aspect.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And most communities, our community ended up doing that. Not everybody ended up needing to do that, but probably a third of our members, either they wanted to put their house on the market, they got an offer earlier than they planned, they wanted to sell it while the going was good, and they moved in with somebody else in the project who ended up being a great friend, you know. So it's a very good point. You have a sense of community, you've got a lot of support, so that creates all kinds of options that you might not have otherwise considered in sort of a more conventional situation. I know you had a question first, and then I've got you.
Can you share observations about residential turnover?
In co-housing in general, or
no, in your community?
In my community.
The others aren't built.
But you would probably have some good statistics on that nationally. But in our community, we probably have half of our members who were there from the beginning. And then the other half, we had a number of folks who, we're a multi-generational community, and we actually thought we were designing for aging in place. But we have discovered over the last 5 years or so that we didn't do that as well as we probably could have, because we own our individual lots and our individual homes. So you have to maintain your individual home and individual lot alone. And so we have a group of older members who, interestingly enough, have sort of moved, like 5 of them have moved to a retirement village that's kind of like co-housing in Blacksburg called Warmhearth. So that's an unusual situation. But now those folks have sort of created mini co-housing in Warmhearth, and families with young children have moved into our community in the houses that they have sold. So that's kind of I don't know. So in our case, it's been over the course of 14 years, about a 50% turnover. I don't know, do you know what the...
We are not a research organization, and so we rely on a lot of anecdotal, but anecdotally, there's a much lower turnover in co-housing than you would see in any other housing, and that has everything to do with people loving their communities and not wanting to leave.
Right. And I think that would vary from community to community and depending on the specific circumstances, job markets, etc. So, but generally people don't, the turnover isn't as high as in conventional neighborhoods. Yeah. Oh.
So in case, you mentioned that there's some rental opportunities for the co-housing as well. In case if this happens, who owns these houses? Is it community property, or is it some other, investor who's putting the money in?
That's a great question. Typically, it's someone who's an owner, who owns a house, and then maybe is living away for a year or more. Different communities have different policies about how long someone can keep a home in rental. And then sometimes the group as a whole will own a certain number of units sort of collectively and keep them in rental. And some communities are really committed to creating a certain amount of affordable housing, so they'll even work to create certain units that would be Section 8 qualified or have sort of federal or state subsidies for housing. That's a little bit more complicated. So you're definitely taking on an extra level of complexity when you choose to do that, but many communities do. Yeah.
Just want to hear have you looked at any places in Richmond? Where are you looking at property in Richmond?
Yeah, so we actually have an extensive database of land that's available that may meet our needs. Right now, I think we're waiting to really partner with the developer, and we're hoping to have that relationship kind of settled by the end of the year. But there's been some great properties out in Church Hill on Government Road there were a couple properties that were available right around there, so anywhere between 3 and 7 acres. And then there's been kind of a couple others just in the general, within that 5-mile radius. We are realizing, though, that 5 miles in one direction does not feel as urban as 5 miles in another. Right. So that's something we're being conscious of.
Other questions for any of it? Yeah.
Are there a lot of developers that are experienced with co-housing to choose from, or are you having trouble finding?
They're not a dime a dozen. And there's more experience on the West Coast than on the East Coast, but we are lucky in this part of the country. In the DC area, there are several folks who have been involved, very supportive of co-housing development. And then in North Carolina, there's several folks who have experience in co-housing development. And then in our area, there's also a community development corporation that was responsible for building our community and Elder Spirit in Abingdon, so it's Virginia-based. So yeah, there is some experience, but it's still a fairly new housing type, and it does involve educating your developer if there's someone who hasn't done co-housing before. Luckily, there's a very strong network of people nationally and even internationally who are interested in co-housing, and so there's a lot of sources of mutual support. So if you have a developer you're interested in working with, you want to probably get them in a telephone conversation with some other developers who have successfully developed co-housing. And so there's that possibility of mutual education. All right, I'm sorry, you had a question for it, and then I'll get you in. Okay, yeah.
There was a comment for Mr. Lloyd about it being a condominium. Is that a detached condominium with a clubhouse? Is that the legal structure that you use for it?
Legally speaking, in Virginia, we can build single-family, multifamily. We can build it in any sort of configuration we want. We're just individually not owning individual pieces of land. We're not subdividing the property. That's the primary criteria.
Okay, I'll talk to you about it. I don't want to.
Okay.
Great. I'm sorry. I think someone else had a. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Is Richmond Richmond government, as far as processing, do you think they're open to the co-housing concept?
Yeah, I think so. Our group has met, I think, with 3 city council members right now, who I think have been very interested in the project. Some that gave us some suggestions of either other people to talk to or potential land that would be available soon. So I think, yes, I think it is, just with developers, it's an educational process just because it's a little new, a little outside the box.
Yeah, I mean, I think Richmond is a good location for it. I think that the sort of way that Richmond is moving in terms of there's a lot of community sort of energy towards revitalization and community development in the